Budget.
Budgeting.
Budgeting.
A budget.
Budgeting.
Budget.
A budget is a
You're excited, you just got yourself a new job, which means that now you're going to get an income. And without knowing, because you haven't been taught before, you go about your life just living. Every time when you get paid, money just goes out of your bank account until it bothers you, until you realize that you don't understand where your money is going, and it's very hard to track how are you spending each and every month. And so you're curious, what can I do to improve my finances? The more that you research, you realize that you need just one tool and one tool only, which is a budget. Now, what is a budget? A budget is a spending tool that shows you your income versus your expenses. It can be a monthly basis. It can also be a yearly budget. But this is a tool that you use to tell your money where it must go. You give it a name and you give it a direction and purpose. And it allows you to track where are you spending your money. So that is a budget. So on today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you guys what is a budget, the importance of a budget, and then I'm going to take you further as to show you how to draw up a simple budget that will allow you to be on top of your finances, to be on top of your expenses, always know where your money is going.
There's a party downtown. Someone said that you're coming.
Hi guys, my name is Nxumalo. So on today's video, as I said, we are going to be talking about a budget. I've already talked about what is a budget, a definition of a budget, basically what I understand a budget to be. I've seen people worry that a budget is constraining. A budget has so many limitations. They feel like they are not free to spend their money the way that they want to. But actually, even with the budget, you're still free to spend your money where you want it to, because now you are actually having a hands-on effect in terms of where your money must go. Because if you do not tell your money where it must go, there are other people that will be very eager to actually tell you where your money must go. So it's very important to take time to sit down and plan your budget, and don't worry about it being constraining, because that is not what it's supposed to be. As I said, a budget, it's a tool that you use to tell your money where it must go and the purpose that it must serve. And there is nothing constraining about that. It's just understanding what is coming in, what is going out, and where it is going. So that is what a budget is in just simple terms. So now let us get into some of the things that I feel are important when it comes to setting a budget. The things that I've noticed is that people are not realistic whenever they are setting a budget. So it's very important that whenever you are setting a budget, that you are realistic. So if you know that this is how much you are expecting to receive in your income, also be realistic with your spending. I would really advise that whenever you are making a budget, always make sure that it is below what you are expecting to receive, because things can change. You may receive more, you may receive less. You never really know for sure. So it's always important that you are realistic when it comes to your expenses. Don't overestimate if you know that it's not really conducive for you, and also don't underestimate if you know that for sure these are the things that you are paying for and this is how much you normally pay for. Secondly, the challenge that I've seen with people is that sometimes they'll blame the budget. Actually, the budget is not the problem in most cases, but it's you as an individual. It is no point in you setting time each and every month to sit down and plan your finances if you are not going to go back and stick to it. So it's no point also sitting down each and every month planning where your money must go, and then you don't go back to make sure that you are sticking to this budget. You are paying for the things that you have said that you're going to be paying for. It becomes pointless. It becomes a useless exercise if you're just gonna set your budget, forget about it, and then when you get paid, you just go about your business and forget about the things that you set up. So it's very important that whatever system that you choose to use when it comes to setting your budget, that is something that is practical for you, that you can go back into, and as you get paid, you go back and you reflect, you record, because that's where you see the effectiveness of a budget. But if you're just gonna set your budget and never go back to it to actually record and monitor how are you spending as per what you planned, then it becomes a fruitless exercise. So the biggest challenge here is the people that set the budget, not the budget itself. So if you're going to choose a system, you can either choose a digital system where you have your budget on an Excel document, or you can have a physical budget. As you know, in this channel, I actually love paper. I love paper planning, and so my budget is on my planner, and I love that because for me my planner is always easily accessible. Not that I'm saying an Excel document wouldn't be easily accessible. But whenever I plan anything digitally, it's very hard for me to go back to that. And so I would advise that you analyze your personality and understand that, okay, whenever I'm using digital things, I find myself going back to them and just making sure that I review and record. Like, it's very easy for you to go back to your digital plans. But then if you know that, okay, paper planning for you is the way to go because you always have your journal or your planner with you, then you can go the paper route. But either way, it doesn't matter. The most important thing is finding a system that works for you, that's going to allow you to be disciplined and be consistent, and always make sure that you go back to your budgets. As I said in the previous point, you want to make sure that when you set your budget, go back to it and review it, because if you don't do that, then it becomes a useless exercise. Another challenge that I've seen is people complicate their budgets when they are starting, and so currently there are a lot of budget templates that are available online. Some free, some you pay for. Like, there's some that I see and they're so beautiful, I'm like, oh my god, I would love to have that. But if you're starting out in your budget, the last thing that you want to do is complicate your budget or complicate this process for you. So you want to make sure that you keep your budget as simple, as straightforward, and you don't want to have too many categories that kind of confuse you. It's always important that when you're starting out with your budget, make it simple. And that is why I would really advise you that just get yourself a journal. And this can be your financial journal, that each and every month, this is where you set your budget. As you mature in your budgeting skills and you feel more confident in what you can do each and every month when it comes to budgeting, then you can advance to other type of budgets. So in digital budgeting, the ones that have a lot of categories and a lot of things, then you can advance to those things. But when you're starting, please keep it simple, don't complicate it. You want to understand what is your income, what is your expenses. That is the most important thing, because once you have the basics locked and you understand the basics of budgeting, whatever that you advance into, it's not going to confuse you, and it's also not going to be overwhelming. Now what you're going to do is I'm going to take you guys to my office and I'm going to show you how to actually write a budget, a simple, straightforward budget. I would actually consider my budget, even now, the one that I have on my journals, a simple and straightforward budget that shows me how much income I'm going to receive, how much savings I'm going to be putting aside, and my expenses. So that for me is what my budget looks like. And so I'm going to be sharing with you guys the basic when it comes to budgeting. Let us go. So the first thing that you need to know when it comes to writing out a budget is you need to know what is your expected income. You don't need to know exactly how much you're going to get paid, but you need to know how much are you expecting to receive in that particular month. So what I normally do whenever I'm writing out a budget is I would have my budgeted column, budgeted and actual. So when it comes to budgeted, it's basically my plan that, okay, this is what I'm anticipating that I'm going to receive in terms of income, and then this is what I'm also anticipating in terms of how much I'm going to spend. So this is budgeted. And then the actual is actually when now you have gotten paid, and so you've seen how much you actually got paid in terms of your salary, and then you have also started paying for the things, and you now know how much you actually spent. So we've got our budgeted, we've got our actual, we've got our income. So let's say that our income, our budgeted income, or what we're anticipating that we're going to receive, is 5,000. Ne? So this is our income. And then once you have your income, then you need to move into your savings. I would really suggest that you have your savings as your main priority, but that is if you really want to actually start being intentional with saving. Because if you're going to wait until you allocate all the monies on your expenses, it's going to be hard for you to then decide how much you're going to put on savings. So I normally have my savings as my major priority. So after my income, it's my savings. So once you here on your savings, so let's say for instance you are planning to save 250. Now after you have your savings, I want you to then look at your expenses. So the next part will be your expenses. So when it comes to expenses, we've got two types of expenses. We've got fixed expenses, and then we've got variable expenses. So I want you to start with fixed expenses first. Now, when it comes to fixed expenses, it's those expenses that don't change. So you know that every month when it comes to your cell phone bill, how much you pay, you know how much you pay for your rent. And also this does include your debts as well. So let's say, for instance, one of your debts maybe is your cell phone contract. Let's say, for instance, in your cell phone contract, you pay 200 rands, ne? Another thing that you have here is your rent. So let's say that maybe your rent is 2,000, ne? So let's say, for instance, you are paying for a fridge that you bought. So let's say maybe you bought a fridge on debt, or you bought a TV on debt, or you bought a couch on debt. So let's just say, so it's furniture repayment, ne? So let's say per month here you pay around, let's just say 400, ne? So those are your fixed expenses, ne? And then what I would do actually is I would total this and see how much it is. Plus 400, it makes it 2,600, ne? And then let us get into your variable expenses. When it comes to your variable expenses, these are things that change each and every month. So we can start with your clothing account. 2, transport. 3, food. 4, water plus electricity. So that's water and electricity. Okay, so let's say, for instance, on your clothing account you pay 350, ne? And then on your transport, let's say you spent around 700. You normally spend around 700. For food, let's make it 1,400, even though that's very small. For water and electricity, let's say it's around 400, ne? Maybe let's say on transport, instead of 700, let's just say, let's make it 6. Okay, so let us add all of these things up. So 350 plus 600 plus 1,400 plus 400 makes it 2,750, ne? So now let us add all of these things up to get a total, because the total is going to give you an idea of if you are over budget or you are under budget. So just looking at this roughly, we are over budget, but let's just calculate it. So it's 2,750 plus 2,600 plus 250, which makes it 5,600, ne? So this is not good because your expected income is 5,000, ne? So now what I normally do is, whenever I find myself in the situation whereby I've budgeted more than what I'm expecting to get, I actually go back and look at the things that I feel like I can actually, change. Now, when it comes to the fixed expenses, these are things that you can't change, because these are things that you pay for each and every month, and they are normally around the same price. So this is how much you pay each and every month when it comes to these things. These are things you can't change, and these are things that you cannot also avoid paying for if you really want to make sure that you maintain a good credit record and also that you don't lose your place to stay. But let's look at these things and see where we can actually cut in order to make sure that we have more money here. So let's say, for instance, on your clothing account, you can say, okay, this month, instead of 350, I'm actually going to put 250, ne? In your food especially is one of the things that you can cut on. Instead of putting 1,400, you say you put 1,000, ne? And then when it comes to water and electricity, this is roughly where things can change. You never know how much you're going to pay. So maybe let's say here we make it 300, ne? So now let's just, and then maybe on transport we make it 5, ne? Now let's come here and see how much that is. So we say 250 plus 5 plus 1,000 plus 300. This makes it, instead of 750, it's now 2050. Ne? And then when we add these things up now, say 2600 plus 250, it makes it 4900. 4900, which this for me is good, ne? Because now, even though this is your budget, this is what you're expecting, but it's less, ne? It's less than what you are expecting that is going to come in. So it's better that it's less, because then you know that, okay, if there's that 100 rands that is left somewhere, you can rechannel it here, somewhere here. So maybe you can add it on food, or maybe you can add it on transport, or maybe you can add it on water and electricity, depending on how much is going to be left actually when you receive your salary. So this is typically what a budget looks like. It's really not complicated. It's just understanding how much are you expecting that you're gonna get, making sure that you prioritize your savings, and then looking at your expenses. If you want to really nail your budget, start by categorizing your expenses based on fixed expenses and variable expenses. Do not worry yourself about having a category for debts, do not worry yourself about having a category for debts, because your debts can be included in your fixed expenses, and then you can also have your variable expenses. So let's say, for instance, now when it comes to how much you get paid this month, you end up getting paid 5,500, because you have done your budget early on and you understand that, okay, this is how much that you are looking to spend, and now your salary comes in and it's 500 rands more than what you budgeted for. So this, now you can actually come here and actually make your savings 500. Ne? Your fixed expenses still remain the same because they don't change, remember? So they still remain the same. And then you come here on variable expenses. Now, because you had 100 rands that was left here, and then your salary came in with 500 rands extra, and you've channeled 250 on that on savings, which means that now you are left with 350. Ne? So what you do is you then look here and say, okay, where can I add? So maybe you say here on your clothing account, you're going to make it 300. And then on your transport, maybe you make it 550. So you've already channeled 50 rands here, minus 50. You've also channeled 50 rands here, minus 50. And then let's come here to food. So to food, you can actually say, okay, this month I am going to budget, let's say 1,150. Ne? Oh yeah, 1,150. And then when it comes to your water and electricity, maybe the bill came, maybe what you needed to actually pay ended up being 350. Ne? You tally all of that up, and then let's start counting. So what you're going to have here is 2,350. And then if we add all of these things together, it makes it 5,450. And you still have 50 rands that you can actually use wherever that you want to channel it to, however that you want to use it. It's your prerogative. But what I'm trying to show you here is, it can happen that your actual money that comes in is less than what you budgeted. It can happen that it's more. But if it's more, then it's a good thing, because you are actually under budget. So then what you want to do is you make sure that whatever that extra income that you got, you channel it properly in your expenses, or also in your savings. Like you see here, it was 250, but then now it's 500. And then here you also added based on the fact that you still had money left. Because the most important thing when it comes to budgeting is that every money has a name. 50 rands, it's fine. You can have that. You can use that to, buy yourself something, whatever, or you can channel it somewhere. But majority of your money, if it's 100 rands and above, you need to start giving it a name. Now that we have done this, we're going to go back where we started and just close off this video. So now that you understand how to set up a budget, the basics of budgeting, I think that it's important for me to just to touch on these points, and then we close off on this video. What are the things that I would really advise you to do whenever you're setting a budget? First thing that I would advise you to do is always try to overestimate your variable expenses. As I've shared with you when we're doing the budgets, that variable expenses are things that change each and every month. So they can be high, they can be low. You never know. Sometimes they're based on your usage. Like my water and electricity in this house, the bill is never the same. Sometimes it's high, sometimes it's low, based on how much I used that month, and also based on the seasons. So what I do is I always overestimate. So maybe by like 100 rand or 200 rands, depending on the fact that I understand my income, and my income allows me for it, and my income allows for me to do that. And so I always overestimate when it comes to my variable expenses, because these are things that normally change. So even if my bill can come and it's high, you might find that it's within what I budgeted, because I overestimate for my things, for my variable expenses. I overestimate for things such as my rates and levies. I overestimate for things such as my transport and also my weekly allowances. I try to make sure that I overestimate for those, because whenever they come below what I actually budgeted, it feels like I'm saving. So that is my first advice. Always overestimate on your variable expenses, because these things always change. This depends also if your income allows. Sometimes your income does not allow this because it's just too stretched. So if it doesn't allow for this, it's fine. Just be realistic. You don't have to overestimate. But if your income does allow, just overestimate for variable expenses. Second thing that I would really advise you to do is always pay your fixed expenses on time. Your fixed expenses are things like your rent and also the debts that are normally fixed. So let's say, for instance, you have a contract phone, or whatever contract that you have, whatever debts that you have. So maybe let's say you bought a couch on debt, you bought a fridge on debt, whatever that you bought on debt, and the money that you pay is normally fixed. You want to make sure that you pay for those things on time, because those are the things that impact on your credit record in most cases. Even though your rent doesn't contribute on your credit record, but you don't want to be out in the streets. So make sure that you pay for your fixed expenses on time. If the due date is on the 1st, make sure that on the 1st you pay for everything. And then the last thing is save what you can. So I know that sometimes whenever we are earning a salary that is low, it's very easy to look at that and feel like you are not earning enough, and so saving for you is not possible. I've made ample videos here on this channel talking about the importance of saving and just saving what you can. So that is what I'm stressing here also, that save what you can, no matter how much is your salary. So with that being said, I'm going to close off this video. Thank you so much for taking time to click on this video, to watch it, and also to give it a big thumbs up, and also commenting down below. I really appreciate each and every one of you. Until I see you on the next one, please take care and stay safe. Bye.